So we've increased aid to the suburbs, and I'd like to point out that you can, rather than use a approach of, you need to cut or else, our approach is we're rewarding the efficiency of suburban school districts, and there are efficient ones, because there can be a standard, for example, that increased funding can only be if you freeze your budget or if you freeze teacher salaries. So we can use more of a positive carrot and a stick approach in making that happen. I do not disagree that we need to seek efficiencies and concessions from the teachers union. I've always shared that belief. We think there's a better way to do that, and rewarding suburban officials, I think, is more positive and will result in actual property tax cuts. In the Christie budget, they've cut, for example, aid to the Abbotts and then put a ton of money in for pre-K programs. There's $613 million in this budget to fund government-funded pre-K programs that didn't even exist in New Jersey 12 years ago. Didn't even exist. That $613 million for government-funded pre-K programs, that's almost the whole $840 million taken from suburban property taxpayers. That's going to result in tax hikes. I'd like to point out that those key pre-K programs range around $12,000 per student to operate, which is absolutely absurd. And besides, they're not even means tested. So there's a federal program called Head Start that meets the needs of children who are truly needy. And what's happening with our pre-K program in New Jersey, it's becoming a middle-class babysitting service. If you take Hoboken, for example, upper-income people in government-funded pre-K programs, we need to eliminate that and put money back into property tax relief. I'd just like to point out that somebody will say, well, the court ordered this. Well, the court case was extraordinarily weak in its merits. I don't believe the Christie administration put up any opposition to this when it was passed. And with all the political capital that Governor Christie is using to take on the teachers across the state, the entire union, all of their money, all of their constituents, I think it's a whole lot easier to take on 7 black-rolled oligarchs, at the Supreme Court. Let's take them on instead, get money back to the suburbs. So that's where we're going with our education funding. And we have aggressively, the money we've restored to the Abbotts is earmarked specifically for school vouchers. And our argument is, if they know they can cut, for example, the aid to Newark to $686 million, and we restore it to $714 million, they've already said they can operate on the $686. The difference that we put back is specifically for school vouchers for the purpose of driving competition and driving down costs, which has proven to work over and over again. That's it on education.
Move on to environmental protection. I think if the common citizen in New Jersey would sit down and read the mission statement and goals of the Department of Education, it would be an eye-opener. I think it would be interesting to ask 10 different people what their concept of environmental justice is, which is an overarching theme in your Environmental Protection Agency. We looked at this, went down program by program. A number of these taxpayer-funded initiatives need to be borne by the industries and those private businesses that benefit or are the polluters or the problem areas. That's where it should be assigned, not to the taxpayers. And the concept of environmental justice most certainly should not be a taxpayer concept. Move on to the next one.
Reggie.
Oh, no, please deal with that statement.
Part of the DEP part is the passage of the cap and trade bill passed in January by Governor Corzine, which is an exact replica of the Barack Obama cap and trade bill that has been so unpopular. As we speak, Senator Lindsey Graham and John Kerry are preparing to roll out new legislation that eliminates cap and trade permits and trading and replaces them with stricter environmental standards, emission standards, which needs to be seen. However, in the press release last week, it talks about the fact that these will negate the need for or the use of these cap and trade trading permits being traded now amongst 10 northeastern states. We recommend that Governor Christie take the lead in eliminating this program, since it appears it could be destined to be eliminated anyway, and point out that the money being raised under the New Jersey cap and trade program that was supposed to be dedicated in the legislation to addressing the global warming threat, if you believe there is one, and going into alternative energy programs, it will now be diverted in this budget simply into revenue for the budget, which is a problem. More taxes for more spending. We advocate for the elimination of this program as quickly as possible.
Department of Health and Senior Services, and throughout our whole budget, you'll see an overarching theme of outcome-based performance measures. And they're very important. I think when you go through and look at the data on program by program in the state of New Jersey, all you see in the evaluation data is inputs and outputs. There's nothing about what sort of outcomes we're gaining with those expenditures of tax money. However, you can draw a little bit of conclusion about what's going on. If you look at, for example, a good one that I would highlight for taxpayers is the disease prevention. There are some wonderful goals, wonderful mission statement, but when you sit down and look at it, in the categories that they list in their evaluation data, not a single category is there improvement in diseases. They project growth in most of those categories. If in fact they are going to prevent disease, our money should be spent to prevent disease. That's not occurring. And not only do we believe that there should be outcome-based performance measures, just as every business has that outcome-based performance measure called net income. When that net income hits a negative, they're not around for very long. We believe that there should be a repercussion. When a program does not perform, its funding should be either discontinued or transferred to a program that is producing. I think that's the sort of thing that if Governor Christie would put in place immediately, it would allow him over the course of his tenure to actually reduce expenditures by getting rid of these programs that have become nothing but a way to churn FTEs and use up the taxpayer dollars with no outcomes. We also, in all the Medicaid and other social sciences, we push for means testing. Now, means testing in many cases will actually increase the amount of federal dollars that are available if you institute means testing. Now, it will, in some cases, eliminate those who are just users of the system and not truly needy, because I believe whenever you have a finite resource, like dollars as we do in this case in the revenues, that you need to